feeling embarrassed or ashamed that you can't buy the gifts that you want right now, right? I love how Les Brown has always framed, where he was at in life. And he's like, I'm not broke. I just have a cash flow problem, right? The way that he frames where he's at in life is just different. And if you can reframe how you talk about yourself and how you talk about your finances, right, that's different. You're not broke. You just have a cash flow problem right now, right? You just got to reorganize your finances a little bit. And so you got to come up with a plan, a strategic plan, and your family will support you. A good family will support you. Hello, everyone. Micah Smith here. I am back with another episode of Rebuild and Rise. And today I want to talk about two different types of presents. Your presents and presents like gifts. And I want to talk about the difference between the two because as we go into this holiday season, I don't want people to fall into the trap of thinking that things have more meaning than you actually do. And I hear this all of the time. And obviously, so being in the credit industry, I see so many scenarios and I hear so many scenarios that are very disheartening. And actually, one comes to mind. And the story is there's an older woman and an older gentleman who are trying to buy a home. And we had gotten the gentleman's credit fixed, but the wife was problematic. And one of the reasons she was problematic is because she just refused to stop spending. And not only was she spending, but on top of that, she was missing payments on her credit cards. So she would spend over the limit and then she would miss a payment on the credit card. And so they were older, they were in their 60s and they were trying to buy a home. And they couldn't buy a home because she refused to change her habits. And this is what breaks my heart every single day because we give the knowledge, we give the information, we give the education, we give you the path, we give you the structure, and we literally coddle you every step of the way. And some people just refuse the gift. And so I want you to take this story, and these are people I've known now for 6 years, and they were represented to our organization again 6 years later with the same problems. And I just was like, these people just refuse to get out of their own way. And going into this holiday season and why I bring up this story is because when I spoke to this individual, they had said, well, the grandbabies, babies, mind you, babies, not even children, babies, they need the gifts. And the husband was like, no, they don't. And I was like, no, they don't. I said, they're not even old enough to remember these things. I'm like, I understand you want to give them these gifts, but you have to understand what you're keeping yourself from. And so I think because so many people just don't understand how interest works, there's a really great principle that is simply put, those who understand interest earn it. Those who don't understand interest pay it. And I'm going to give you a really quick breakdown of something that I teach in my classes. So in my classes, I teach that the average person in America is spending $1,400 a month in just interest. Now, our clients who are subprime clients are probably spending closer to $2,000 or more a month. Obviously, the bigger the purchase, the more the interest, right? So the bigger the house, the more expensive the car, the higher the balance of credit cards, the bigger the numbers. And so in my classes, I show people, listen, if you were to take, right, if you were to go from a 639 credit score to a 760 on, let's just go with a $500,000 home, the average savings come out to a little bit over $500 a month in interest, just interest, right? So that's a $500 difference in your payment a month. And instead of that money going to the bank because you look riskier on paper because you have a lower credit score, now that money stays in your pocket, right? So that's money. So you're still paying interest. You're just not paying as much. So what we have people do is we're like, listen, so if you were to take that $500 that you were going to spend in interest and you were to invest it into the S&P 500, right, here's what would happen. So first, let me give you the breakdown, right? So if you're just paying $500 a month, 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 over 30 years, it's roughly like around $150,000, okay? That's a huge chunk of change, right? So the comparison is person A, right, with a 639 credit score will pay $150,000 more in interest than person B, who has the higher credit score. They pay $150,000 less in interest. So that number is 150 grand, right? Over 30 years. Now, if you were to take that same amount and you were to take that $500 a month instead of paying it towards interest and you invested it into the S&P 500, right, every single month, and you just left it there, let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. The power of compounding, it's actually proven. So over the last 30 years, right, so the S&P 500 has grown at an average rate of return of 10%. So if you had been invested, right, for the last 30 years, you would have over $1 million. $1 million bucks. Crazy. $500 a month, 30 years, $1 million bucks. Versus, right, you just split ways with 150 grand unnecessarily. So if you had invested, and this is the power of building wealth, but it starts with a good credit score. And that's how we talk about it. And so these tiny little decisions that we're making, right, month over month, year over year, day over day, week after week, they compound into something either really positive or something really negative. People can look at your daily habits and we can predict exactly where your future is going to be. I mean, it's not hard, right? If somebody was to follow you around for a day, what would they say? What is your life going to look like tomorrow or in 10 years? That's a really scary thought. You might want to ask yourself that question. If I continue down this road, if I continue down this path, what is my life going to look like in 10 years? If I change the trajectory of my life, what will it look like? And so there's always a cost to doing things, always, no matter what. So if you decide to make the purchases that you can't afford to impress people that, right, maybe care or don't care, at the end of the day, listen, they don't pay your bills, you do. And I want you to know that your presence is more important than any gift you could physically, tangibly give someone. It means more than anything. You as a human being being present for your loved ones means more than any gift that you will ever give them. And I will tell you, so we see people, right, the luxury handbag, my goodness, the handbag, it drives me absolutely bonkers. $1,000 handbag that ends up costing you $3,800 because you make minimum payments. It's the $300 gaming system that ends up becoming $900 with interest. It's the 29.99% store cards that people use to treat loved ones, but end up paying for 3 holidays in a row. We see that. 3 holidays in a row. I mean, that's crazy, right? So I think one of the biggest things that I grew up in a way where I understood the value of money at a very young age because we didn't really have any. And so anything we got, we cherished. And I am actually still that way today. When you expect nothing, everything is amazing. And I still live that way. I expect nothing from people. So when I get anything, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I think it's it's really amazing. And so growing up, I will tell you how I grew up. So again, we grew up with not a whole lot. And my dad's mother, my grandmother, was a wonderful and caring human being. And she lived in a trailer, and beautiful woman inside and out. And she would save her for an entire year, so she would save money an entire year to be able to take the family out to Fur's Cafeteria in Arvada, Colorado. Now, Fur's Cafeteria at that time was $4.99 a person for all you can eat. And it was probably my favorite restaurant, along with my little sister. And I still love all you can eat restaurants to this day. I have a very fond place in my heart for all you can eat restaurants. And she would save up all year to be able to have a nice meal all together as a family. And those dinners meant more to me and our family than anything. And like looking back at the selflessness of the family that I grew up with, I'm just amazed. And I never knew what we didn't have. I always know what we did have. And for me, I just wish that more people understood the power of love and what it means to truly be selfless, and understand that looking back on your life and looking back on my life, there are very few gifts that I remember. My memories are compounded of times that I spent with my family, just being around the dinner table and holding hands and praying and laughing, and my little sister and I making jokes about seeing who could eat the most. I know it's really gross, but we would always say, like, we're always going to see who can eat the most. We're going to eat till we throw up or blow up. And just like these silly little things and just the fun we used to have as a family. I'm sorry, I got really choked up right there, and I really didn't expect that to come out of me right now, all that emotion. But it really is amazing to me the things that I find value in, and it's not the stuff, it's not the things, it's the people, it's the physical presence of these individuals. And I will tell you that my grandmother passed away when I was a very little girl. She was very, very sick, but this woman had just such a big heart, and that's the biggest thing that I ever learned from her. And I took on her characteristics, and without even trying, they always say that habits are caught, not taught. I caught that from her. I caught that from my father. My father never believed in debt. Now, listen, I made a lot of mistakes my parents didn't make, but my father was so selfless in his giving. My mother was so selfless in her giving. We never bought new clothes. We never took vacations. We never ate out except for that once a year. And their selflessness, they wanted to ensure that we had the best lives that we possibly could. And they were there. My dad would take the bus to work every single day. And I still remember as a little girl, right, my dad, so we would wait for our dad to come home from work, and he would get dropped off and he would walk, right, like from the top of the block. And so like as soon as I would see my dad coming, I would run down the block and I would jump into his arms, and like my sister and I, we would race, and like we would hold his hands and we would walk to our house. And like the things that I remember when I was a little kid, it's not the stuff that my parents bought for us. It was the time that we spent together. It was the jumping on the trampoline in the backyard. It was the nights of playing hide and go seek. It's the cake that my mom made that tasted so bad because she wanted to try to make homemade ice cream cake, and it was horrible. And we laugh about it to this day. It's the jumpers my mom made for me from these patterns that we picked out at the fabric store. I mean, it was like these funny things that we look back on, and we have these memories that we created as a family. And anyone who grew up with very little, you tend to find joy in a lot of little things that I think as you tend to get more and more and more, a lot of people tend to find less joy in the little things because they're chasing the things that aren't important. And I just want to make sure that I leave you with this. So what I want you to focus on is I want you to focus on what's most important and really sit down and evaluate, am I doing this to impress someone? Or am I doing this because I love someone? And if you love someone, right, you can clearly think, right, what makes sense long term. And I really would ask of everyone is please don't bury yourself in debt to buy gifts that no one's going to think about in a week, right, after you give it to them. And that's just a fact. And I actually do want to share some really important things that I actually took away from my church. My pastor does amazing sermons on money and finances all the time. And I wanted to read a Bible verse that I'm actually going to read. So Luke 16:1, which says, "So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own?" And there was a reminder that he gave us, which is that simply we don't own anything. We truly only manage everything. And he reminded us that money is a test. And when you look at your finances, and even Morgan Housel talks about this, he writes a couple of really great books. He wrote The Psychology of Money. Now I'm finishing up How to Spend Your Money. Phenomenal books, and I highly recommend both of them. And the thing that we need to realize is, do we possess our money, or does our money possess us? And you're going to find, like, when you have money, it's not going to change your happiness. It's not going to change your heart. It's not going to change who you are. It's just going to magnify more of who you are. And it really is a test, right? What you do with what you've been given is a test, right? To whom much is given, much is required, right? But if you can't be faithful with a little, why would you be given more, right? And that's the thing, it's a test. So if you can do well with something small, then you'll be given more. And it's the same way, right, within organizations and companies. Like, we test our employees. If you can be given a little and you can be trusted with that, then we'll continue to give you more and give you more. It's the same thing with finances and everything that we do. And I feel like naturally the world will reward those who are naturally just more responsible. And I really want you to just think of it this way, because if there's any of you who are feeling ashamed because you can't afford to buy the gifts that you want to buy people right now, I'm going to tell you, don't feel ashamed. And I know that is easier said than done, but I'm going to tell you this. You have a choice to make today where you can simply say, I'm not going to put myself into debt today for something that's not going to matter even a week from now, right? So what you're going to say is, I'm going to be responsible with my money because I want to build lasting wealth for my family. I think your children will appreciate a lot more versus giving them all the hottest new toys if you were to put some money aside, right? Like, the Bible even talks about, like, building a legacy and being able to have wealth that passes on for generation to generation. But if you squander everything you have in the here and now, you'll have nothing to pass on to the future generations. And that's not the way to live. So instead of feeling embarrassed or ashamed that you can't buy the gifts that you want right now, right? I love how Les Brown has always framed, where he was at in life. And he's like, I'm not broke. I just have a cash flow problem, right? The way that he frames where he's at in life is just different. And if you can reframe how you talk about yourself and how you talk about your finances, right? That's different. You're not broke. You just have a cash flow problem right now, right? You just got to reorganize your finances a little bit. And so you got to come up with a plan, a strategic plan, and your family will support you. A good family will support you. Listen, your kids might not understand, but they'll understand later on. And instead of feeling ashamed that you can't afford something right now, right, look to the future, right? Because you can't change the past, but you can write your own future. And if you make poor decisions now, you're writing a future that looks very bleak. And so as we go into this holiday season, I want you to be the one to break the cycle. I want you to stop overspending, stop, paying holiday debt until June. My goodness gracious. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? So I really want you this holiday season, I want you to fill in the blank yourself. This holiday season, the most valuable thing I can give is this. And whatever that looks like for you, do that. All right, guys. This is Micah Smith with another episode of Rebuild and Rise. Thank you for joining me. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. And if you had liked this show and this inspired you, or someone that you know will be inspired by this show, please send it to them. Thank you so much for listening and watching. God bless. Until next time.